Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're taking a look at some essential tips for Baldur's Gate 3. Just a heads up that I will be avoiding spoilers as best as possible here, especially outside of the first 5 or so minutes of the game, so you can watch without having any interesting secrets or solutions revealed for you, and instead, you'll learn about some key mechanics and angles of approach that will make your time with the game significantly smoother. Those familiar with CRPGs and with D&D 5th edition might find some of these fairly obvious, but I hope there are little bits of intel in here for vets and beginners alike. If you have any thoughts of your own you'd like to share, feel free to do so in the comments down below. Now with all that said, and no more time to waste, let's dive in. Investigate everything. As RPGs go, chances are you're going to loot literally everything. If you're a role player, you might find yourself occasionally leaving bodies unlooted on the ground in the interest of staying in character, but investigation goes beyond simply clicking on chests and barrels and bodies to grab the goods, or even clicking on items to pick them up and stash them in your inventory. First off, make sure to semi-permanently hold down the left Alt key. Doing so will highlight any interactive items in range, and keep in mind, this is only for items in range. You can't look down an infinite hallway and expect everything to be highlighted. So, yes, either hold down the Alt key, or keep in mind to occasionally tap it to spot new potential points of interaction. Note, however, that not everything gets highlighted despite what the game tells you. Some items will still need to be hovered over, such as restoration points. Take the time to hover your mouse around unfamiliar items when you first encounter them. It'll give you a good idea of what to look for and what to ignore when you encounter it again in the future. Once again, you have to be close enough to an item to be able to hover over it and get the highlight of interactivity. So, make sure to truly spend some time moving around a space and even rotate your camera around using the middle mouse button. You never know when you'll spot something at a different height level that's worth investigating. And if something looks like it needs a little braking for the purpose of investigation, hold down Control and click on it to attack it. This can be used not just to break open barrels and crates, but also to attack pieces of the environment that can be used in combat. A health bar with a number is typically a good indicator of something that can be destroyed for some reason or another. Now, if the health bar instead has an infinity symbol, don't waste your time. Sometimes you need to interact with an object and pass a check to understand what's going on, like anything marked as a sigil needs you to pass an Arcana check to read it. Apart from that, however, a quick right-click allows you to explore other options, such as actions you might not realize you can take, and why you may or may not be able to take those actions against a particular object, or thing, or person, what have you. Through this menu, you'll also typically be able to examine anything. This is a great way to simply get to know what you're looking at, and it also helps understand what status effects might mean, and how you can take advantage of them. It's also a great way to find out exactly what you're dealing with when it comes time to fight. Which leads us to combat preparations. First things first when preparing for combat, don't get into combat prematurely. By following the previous tip judiciously, you should find it relatively easy to spot danger before it spots you. Using the hide bonus action, or by tapping C, you can move around with relative impunity, as long as you avoid enemy line of sight, represented by the cone of vision seen here. And even if you end up within that cone, your character will do a stealth check. That is to say, dice rolls will determine if you've been spotted or not, as determined by your stealth skill. Certain spells and abilities can be used without breaking stealth, further allowing you to set up for battle without wasting precious actions mid-battle. Remember that characters have to be put into hiding mode individually, so make sure to do that if you plan to go sneaking around as a party. But beyond that, to play it extra safe, you might want to only sneak around with a character who's got the skills for it at an appropriate level. Prevent party members from following each other by clicking on portraits and dragging them apart until the chain between them is broken. This allows them to move independently of each other. Not only is this good to ensure stealth is reserved for the stealthy, but it also lets you get individual characters into ideal positions based on their abilities. High ground advantages for your ranged characters, behind the enemy for backstabbing advantages on your warriors with light weapons, safely tucked away from danger for support characters, etc., etc. This Independent movement isn't restricted to a small area either. You can split the party to take multiple approaches to the same engagement to ensure all party members have the ideal angle of approach, even if it means taking them from one end of the map to the other. When you're done with the independent movement, just push the portraits back together and your party will be reunited. When you have the enemy in your sights, you should examine them if you're not already familiar with them, and this will allow you to see what their strengths and weaknesses are, which in turn will allow you to dip your weapon, set up the environment, or otherwise prepare and use spells and items accordingly in preparation for the engagement ahead. For this, you might also need to consider resting. Spell slots are a required resource for casting spells, and spell slots only replenish after a short rest. There are certain actions that require a short rest to replenish as well, particularly the more advanced attacks. A short rest can be taken by clicking the little icon up here. It's quick, and it immediately recharges everything that requires a short rest, and it also replenishes some hit points based on some dice rolls. A short rest cannot be taken in the middle of combat or when enemies are too close, so you might need to pull back before engaging in a short rest, and it's important to know that you can only take a limited number of short rests before you have to take a long rest. These are, as the name implies, a longer section of the day spent resting, and important to allow for more short rests, and often needed to replenish certain actions or to replenish spell slots and arcane recovery charges as a wizard alongside HP. Because of this balance between long and short rests and the inability to just rest anywhere, you shouldn't take a short rest between every encounter to replenish your spell slots and abilities, but instead make the decision only if you feel you need it for what lies ahead. Also remember, as a caster, you want to make sure you prepare the right spells if necessary based on your class before you get involved in a battle. There's no point walking in with fire damage against fire-resistant enemies, for example, so make sure to plan ahead before you engage. Use and beware of the environment. The key to getting ahead in a battle against the odds is often the environment in which the fighting is taking place. You and your enemies can take advantage of steep drops, fires, water, and more in order to cause or prevent damage, and you should make investigating the battlefield one of the first things you do when battle actually kicks off, and, even before, if I'm honest. The AI will seek out high ground for the advantage it gives them, and for the disadvantage it gives anybody trying to attack them. You should certainly try and do the same. Certain objects, like these tanks, can be attacked to spill their contents. These contents, when hovered over, give a hint. Apply fire. Items like these tanks can be manipulated and set up before and during a battle to maximize their efficiency, and remember again to use dipped weapons like a fire-dipped ranged weapon to ignite what needs igniting. As hinted at before as well, don't hesitate to look above you too. Certain items and objects can be dropped from up on high to further impact battle. All it might take is the right kind of attack or ability use. Remember to experiment and to look around. Again, your camera isn't restricted to a certain angle or even a certain spot. Neither is the battle. If you see a distant region where the battle could work in your favor, don't hesitate to try and push or pull your enemy towards it. Be careful though, as new parts of the map might invite new enemy combatants into the battle as well, giving you little or no time to prepare for the new arrivals. The environment is also something to keep in mind outside of battle. As stated earlier, solving puzzles, gaining access to seemingly inaccessible areas, and even blocking certain kinds of traps can all be achieved with a proper use of the environment. Remember bonus actions. Every round of combat, characters will have a certain amount of distance they can move, alongside an action and a bonus action that they can use to perform various tasks. Spellcasters will also have spell slots. You can see what something costs to perform by hovering over it. Not only will it be clearly written out, but the flashing colors will also highlight the resources being used for the action. Most activities will cost an action point, whether that's performing an attack, throwing an item from your inventory, using a cantrip or a spell, or dashing to increase movement, knocking enemies out, or helping friends recover from various status effects. Bonus actions, however, are reserved for a select few things that can sometimes make or break an entire engagement. For one, consuming a potion, such as a potion of healing, is a bonus action. That means you can freely move, attack, and heal in one turn as long as you don't forget the bonus action. Beyond that, jumping away from a melee engagement is a great way to avoid being hit by an enemy's attack of opportunity, and it can also help you cover more ground, reach hard-to-reach spaces, and avoid dangerous ground. That applies in battle and outside. Dipping your weapon from time to time can help add damage types onto the weapon, like the ability to cause fire damage. Remember to switch to the right weapon type before dipping, otherwise you might find yourself standing at the perfect perch with a flaming sword and a perfectly unlit arrow. There are other benefits beyond that as well. A torch dipped in fire, for example, will provide light in the area in an otherwise dark spot, helping the fighting abilities of any characters who lack the ability to see in the dark. Shoving is an excellent way to push enemies around into each other or into dangerous parts of the environment, or off cliffs and ridges to cause fall damage. Throwing enemies is a regular action, and some characters aren't strong enough to throw, but they'll still be able to shove. It's not the same, mind you, but it can often be used to similar effect. Again, such as throwing people off the edge of a cliff. Shoving is also an effective way to send allies further into battle than they were able to get on their own. If you're going to toss a dwarf though, just don't tell the elf. And finally, there's the hide action, which we discussed previously, allowing you to get back to sneaking around if you want to get into a better position before re-engaging the enemy. As you can see, these bonus actions have a variety of uses that can sometimes go well beyond what their descriptions might suggest. Make sure to use them at every opportunity. They don't prevent you from moving or attacking, and they are literally bonuses that you should always try to take advantage of, if possible and reasonable, of course. I hope these 4 essential tips help you get an understanding of things that might not otherwise be immediately evident when it comes to playing Baldur's Gate 3. There's lots of room for experimentation and testing, of course, and that's where a lot of the fun lies, but I hope some of the tools for said experimentation have been made more clear with this video. I'll be covering more Baldur's Gate 3 on this channel, through either a Let's Play or live streams, and maybe even some more in-depth guides for more veterans of the series and this type of game. But that, alongside the usual array of strategy and simulation gaming, is something you can expect a lot of on this channel, so don't hesitate to subscribe if you're new here, and as I said before, feel free to drop your own thoughts in the comments down below as well. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly, and of course a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.